Here we go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the show. We are your hosts, Colin Peters,
John Rochetter,
and Jeff Manfred.
And today we got a very special guest with us. You know him from Batman89, the Tim Burton classic. He is Michael Keaton's movement double, and he is very, very special. And then we are tremendously honored to have him on with us today. He is Mr. Carl Newman.
Hello, everyone. How are you all doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
Really very well, and looking so forward to this.
Oh, you have no idea how we've been looking forward to this.
Weeks.
We are tremendously honored that you're taking the time for us to do this, and we couldn't have been any happier. This is tremendously special to us because Batman89 has been an incredibly important movie to all of us. I mean, even in 2021, when things were just starting to open up from the pandemic, I actually rented a movie theater and had them play Batman89 for my birthday, and we got like 25 people to fill up the theater. Like it was max capacity for COVID at that time.
Yeah,
and it like still makes an impact to people to this day. Like one of my friends brought her teenage son, and he had never seen it, and his friends, and she said to me after they left the theater, they were like, that movie, like with the Batwing and the Batmobile, they couldn't stop talking about it. So it's incredible how even newer generations are still watching this movie, and for the first time, they just leave going, that movie was amazing.
My girlfriend hadn't seen it before until that day.
Wow. I mean,
it was the first time she ever saw it. So I didn't know Jack Nicholson and everybody else was so amazing. I don't really watch comic book movies, but this was special.
It's staggering, isn't it? How it's just got this amazing interest which will continue on, and I'm loving the fact that your audiences, that the families are introducing their children, and it will just continue this way, won't it? It's totally amazing.
Absolutely. First of all, we should introduce yourself. You want to give everybody a little background about you?
Yes.
Yeah. So I Carl Newman here, and I trained as a professional dancer. Originally, I was mad about the drums and still am, and I was wanting to be a professional drummer at one time. I had a selection of careers, if you like, that were sort of stacking up, saying go this way or that way. Jewelry, I was very creative. Jewelry was an art that I enjoyed at school. But the drumming led onto the dance, and so I ultimately did quite a bit of classical and contemporary ballet training, and then I went on to a much more commercial performing arts college where we covered everything from tap to national to pas de deux. We did singing, we did acting as well, and then that set me on a great course then for performing in television and all facets of the medium. So and that's really what got me into Batman.
Awesome. How did you come across the Batman gig?
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. I was working for one of the, if you like, the longest running established dance agencies in London. And they called me up one particular day and said, Carl, look, they're making this new Batman movie at Pinewood Studios. And they're looking for someone who can add this sort of extra, if you like, to the character of Batman. So I went along initially and met a wonderful guy called Derek Cracknell, who was Tim's first assistant director. Lovely guy. We had a chat. So he was telling me various things of what he could at that time, and I sort of expressed my interest in this and then left feeling good. But then I didn't hear anything for some time after that initial meeting. And then I was sharing digs with a number of dance students in a big house in West London. And I got the call that night, and they said, Carl, right, we want you to come in, meet the wardrobe team, try the costume on, and go from there. And so I did that. I couldn't wait to get to Pinewood again, hurrying on the tube, got there and met the wonderful wardrobe team, which was, the Bat Wranglers, people like Day Merge and William Todd Jones, and of course, Vin Burnham, who'd sculpted the cow. And we all got on so well. They put the costume on me and said, you really fit that cow well. They were sort of singing my praises. I felt really good because I was athletic as well, and I used to work out quite a lot, and a lot of sport, and obviously with my dance training, and I felt super in this costume, as you would do. And we spent some time just chatting, and then I disappeared and was running up and down corridors at this particular building at Pinewood. I thought, well, what else can I do? I'm literally, that's all I've got at the moment. But it felt great, and then went back into the wardrobe department, and they asked me, they picked me up on one of these golf buggies and took me onto the back lot. And I met Tim for the very first time, and he was lovely. And he sort of said, show me what you can do, sort of thing. And so I was leaping and throwing myself all over the place as best I could, and waited on the sidelines. And then one of his other assistants tapped me on the shoulder and said, "We'd like you to stay." That's how it started.
Just like that?
Just like
That's
that.
awesome.
No kidding.
That's so cool.
It's wild, isn't it, really?
Yeah. That's so cool.
Wow.
Like, oh man, he's got the moves. He's in.
just like that.
But I was there. You know how you are sometimes when you just cannot believe things have happened. And I was sitting there just thinking, did that really happen?
Yeah.
What happens now? And I think it was Todd that took me away and went back to the wardrobe. And for initial days, if you like, when I was there, I was literally watching what was going on and getting a feel for the filming, because as schedules ran, you were not necessarily needed straight that moment or that day. It might just be that they were getting Michael ready, or they were doing something with Jack or whatever. So it gave me a chance to really see things being set up as well, for stunts or for chases or with the crowd scenes. And that was wonderful in its own way.
I was just going to say that probably helped you to like get a feel for the character, to go, okay, this is what the environment's like, so this is how this character would move. I'm sure, like, now,
Yes.
one, I've heard, like, being trained in, acting and performing arts myself, that, and we even know just as fans, as Halloween, like, as soon as you put on a costume, you want to become that character. It's like everything just washes over you, that you're like, here we go, we're ready. But then you got to be in an environment yet that was built to be Gotham City. It was like an adult playground to pretend, basically. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that just it's like seeing, like you said, the stunts and the other costumes and the other actors, it just probably gives you like an energy that you just revved you up.
Yeah, I was very, very lucky because, I was navigating around that whole setup there at Pinewood. And as you know, from seeing the film and from seeing stills, it was just the most amazing setup. I think it was 1.5 miles or something like that, which was
Oh.
the length of the Gotham City. And I'd always loved design. I think there's some design very much in my family, some architectural design, and I'd always loved seeing the way buildings were done, you know, from the design perspective, and just the way everything was done, you know, the way they created the atmosphere, filming, the lighting, which is so key, isn't it, in movies. And I would be going through, you know, where they would be doing makeup, or I'd go and see, I'd be mixing with the special effects people. I mean, I was incredibly lucky, not only to do the movie, but to have, if you like, this opportunity to meet everybody, not just fleetingly, but to spend time with them, you know. So I spent time with the special effects guys, or I would be going into different studio situations and then spending time, excuse me, with the wardrobe people. You know, we became very good friends, so that gave me another layer of this experience. And then, like you say, it did give me that osmosis effect of I could absorb the Batman character, because I could really feel what the lighting and the gothic design and everything, atmosphere was. It gave me an extra layer of that. So that was brilliant.
Now, when you were coming up with the moves, were things already established? Because it sounds like Michael was already there and the stunt guys were already there, but they had issues moving in the suit. Did they talk to you and say, we have this for an idea? Or was everything like the way you came down with the cape open and opening the cape and the way you turn your body? Was that all you? Or did Tim or Michael say anything to you like, we were trying to do this, but it didn't work?
Well, initially, Sean was there right from the start. Sean McKay was there from the start with Michael. Dave Lee didn't come in until very much later, right, very much at the end of the movie, I would say. So Sean was in first. And I think that's why they realized that when Sean and Michael were there, that there was still something missing. So that was why they looked at the professional dancer, ballet, you know, athletic kind of scenario. I came in, yeah, it was very much there with Tim's imagination, if you like, or his direction. He knew from the storyboards. I would assume that he knew exactly what he wanted. I was doing some things with Todd away from, you know, if you like, the filming side. I would go into perhaps a separate studio or space and just, because it was a case of, as you know, when you've got that costume and when you've got the cape, and if the rods are in as well, you need to be able to work with it a bit as well and get that flow with your arms and everything else. I think it was a combination of both, really. Was that Tim did know what he wanted, but then he allowed me as well to express myself through the movements. And I think because of the way, you see, it's very, very interesting, because Dave Lee couldn't move like me. I mean, Dave Lee could do the most amazing fighting, but, you know, an illustration of that was in the bell tower when Dave had done some fighting, but he couldn't move. He couldn't have that flow like me. So Peter McDonald got me back in, because there's a lot of me walking in that bell tower, for instance. When I say walking, it's not like just plodding around. It's having that elegance and that flow with the movement. So I think a lot of what was coming in from the combination, if you like, with Tim's direction. Yes, when I did that initial land on the rooftop, how that was I was literally with the Kirby wires. I had the harness wrapped around me. That was my first introduction to using Kirby wires. And as you can imagine, it's a case of everything has to be perfect. You know, the way the guys are lowering you down, the speed of how they're lowering you and the angle that they're lowering you, and you also getting the timing with, you know, you're landing, but you're softening through the knees, with that sort of plie element, like in ballet. And then you're getting also the time with the arms to do that sort of very slowly. But yes, you can have direction, but you've got to have that within you as well. I think that's the key to it, because a lot of cosplayers and people will know, yeah, you can flap your arms around and you can do this, but it's having that, isn't it? You know, it's having that sort of strength and poise, but also that elegance, you know, with what you're doing, that it's so much timing and feeling as well. You have to feel it. It's no good just doing it like a robot. You have to feel that and imagine it. And it's the same when I was pursuing Vicky in the bell tower. You know, you've got to have that, because it translates through the body as well, even though, of course, Michael's having all the close-ups. Like when the trap door opens, I mean, I did all that initially, and it's a lot of me perhaps lowering it, because then it's not Michael's close-up. But yeah, there has to be that feeling and that real depth inside of what you're doing, but also how your body is, how your body reacts to these things. So I would say it's a combination of everything that goes within that.
Okay.
What can you tell us about the deleted scene that they had of you at the very beginning?
Yes, I mean that will haunt me forever. I think if that doesn't get released on some kind of special edition or whatever. But I think, as you alluded to when we were chatting before, Colin, that you know these poses and these holds and various things can become very painful after a while, because if you're doing something very static. So, for instance, I was told by Tim about this scene, and the idea was that, you know, I was amongst these gargoyles, and that the audience wasn't really quite sure that you know, the camera would pan up Gotham Cathedral, and you would see these gargoyles, but then you would see this kind of silhouette, if you like, this figure. And it was just the fact that there was these sort of lovely movements which just gave a real interest there to the audience. And so I assumed this position, which was very crouched, but it was also a nice symmetry, because, again, being a dancer, you didn't want to look like something that was awkward and ugly. So you had this lovely symmetry in the suit. But what I was doing, I was kind of contorting my body. And you have this sort of independence where, you know, you may turn a bit of the back and then the shoulder and then a bit of the head in the neck. And it just worked beautifully. I was literally in that position for such a long time. And it was, I could feel the pain, you know, going through everything. But dancers are masochists anyway, so
that's the best description of a dancer, really.
They are suffer for your art, you know. And you're thinking, well, I'm not going to wince out of this one. And
if there's not blood on the dance floor, you're not doing something right.
Right. It's not right. If it takes me an hour to get my, you know, to stand upright again, that's fine. You know, I've done the job. I've done the job. No, but it literally was a long time. But the feeling I got and the feedback was that it just looked amazing. Really looked amazing when they'd seen it in the rushes to dailies, and that was the wardrobe people that told me that. And it felt so right for me as well. I think you have that feeling, don't you, when you
Oh, absolutely.
You know something is really, you've hit it well. And I just couldn't believe it when I went to the cast and crew screening and it wasn't there. I thought, why have they replaced that with animation?
It sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah,
It looks
it
so
does.
bad. Even as a
Yeah.
kid, I was like, I always associated, like, is Looney Tunes part of this, because they were a Warner Brothers thing, and I was like, and then on the VHS there was this like Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck like infomercial or something, and I was like, huh?
There's been a lot of conjecture, hasn't there, over that scene, and people saying, well, the reveal would have been too early, but I don't believe that, because the reveal was only, the silhouette in a sense anyway. It wasn't sort of like giving the face away or too much away. It was just a hint of Batman. And it was also showing you that he was aware about the muggers, and that he was moving into a better position to kind of access them. When they were there, when they were just going through all the various, American Express, etc. So I honestly think it would have flowed better with that.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I
agree too.
I saw the pictures of it and I said, this is a beautiful shot of you crouched down with the gargoyles in the cathedral. So it like creates like bookends,
Yes.
of like the beginning of the cathedral and the end of the cathedral. And I also found it very symbolic, because Batman is this dark character. He's got almost like devil horns on the mask. He's a scary figure, and he's amongst the gargoyles. And anybody who knows what the purpose of gargoyles is, to scare scary things away. And that's kind of what Batman does, is he protects the good people. He's the dark demonic looking figure, but he scares the bad guys away. Yes. And then the Joker is this lighthearted, goofy, like lovable looking clown, but really he's the bad guy and Batman's the good guy. So for Batman to be with the gargoyles and looking the way he does, I was like, this would be like the perfect opening for him.
Yeah, and it gave you also, I think, that the chance, you could appreciate that set as well, couldn't you? Where you got that lovely gothic feel right from that moment where you saw the gargoyles and you saw the way it was lit.
I would die if I was on that set. That would be like my favorite playground ever.
I don't think I'd want to leave.
No. Oh, that's how I felt. I just thought, my word, I've got the first 3 shots in the movie when I'd potentially done that and thought that was going in, and I thought, wow, I've landed. No, there's that one, then I've landed, and then you see me open the cape and jump down the next shot. I was so crestfallen, devastated when that didn't go in.
I don't blame you. We'll have to start a petition to get that.
Yeah, I think it needs it.
Jeff's good at arguing.
Now, were there a lot of restrictions when you were wearing that suit because of how much movement you had to do?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about it was cumbersome, it was heavy, it was restrictive. Yes. I don't know. You see, I think for me, Jeff, that dancers are so used to wearing costumes of all manner. You wear something for like a period drama. I've done things where I've worn these kind of Edwardian or military type costumes. So yeah, there was the sense that it was restrictive, but for me, and it's not just saying it, but for me, it didn't affect me. I mean, it just was what it was. I would, move my head as much as possible and move around. And also, I think for me, what was lovely was being given the opportunity to do a lot of the publicity shots, or they kind of saw those as a way of, maybe they were just saying this to me, but they said, we want to see how a dancer looks in these costumes. But I think secretly they were thinking, well, we'll get you in the magazines and make out that it's Michael. But it honestly didn't feel too restrictive for me.
What was the most challenging scene you probably had to film with the costume on?
With the costume on, the most challenging scene. Well, I think certainly the Batmobile, getting into the Batmobile initially seemed like an impossibility because it wasn't a very big cockpit. I know people have kind of thought, how the hell did you get in there? I mean, some people just sort of climbing in and then sort of going in is enough. But I think that would certainly rank as, and also things that people can take for granted. Now, for instance, when I lifted the trapdoor open, you know, in the bell tower, when Batman emerges and you see Michael and he's looking around, and then that was incredible to do as well, because what you had to do was open that trapdoor with one arm. I was crouched down for ages under that trapdoor, waiting to come out, and then they finally, you know, shouted action, and that I came through. But you had to make that very sort of fluid and elegant. Like, it was quite heavy, and I just did it with one arm, and you're emerging like a beautiful butterfly out of the earth for Christmas, in a way that you don't want to make it look awful on the eye, because someone's like, oh, look at him, he did this really awkward thing when he lowered it down. You know what I mean? It's making that so beautiful, even just opening a trapdoor and coming out. So again, that was really quite tricky to do, to make it very elegant, you know, as though Batman it's just the norm for him just to do anything, basically. So I would say they seemed quite minor things, like jumping into the Batmobile and emerging from the trapdoor, but it's doing it in a way where it's so naturalistic and it's so elegant, but yet there's a lot more involved to make it very fluid and not awkward. Because, as you know, with that costume and the cowl pulled down very tight onto the cape, you know, it was like it was bolted down. So you had all that. You can tell with this one. But no, I think for me, it was just a joy, because I think you love to be challenged, don't you? You love to be tested, and it brings out an even better quality in you as a performer. It's like when musicians say, you know, you always want to surround yourself with the best possible people, because they raise your game. And that's what I felt working there as well, was that it was working with these incredible technicians, the cast and crew, everybody under Tim, were just out of this world.
What can you tell us about Tim?
Sorry?
What can you tell us about Tim?
I'm just the loveliest guy. I mean, I'm not just saying that. You know, I look back sometimes and I think, why didn't I keep that away from wearing it? You know, because Tim gave a number of us the most beautiful sweatshirt with his Joker design on there. And of course,
the actual like Joker face was designed by him.
He did like the Joker and the body as well. He did his design of that. And
wow.
Yeah, he gave me this sweatshirt and it was fantastic. But of course, I wore it to death. I just loved it. I mean, I don't know. You know, you think back and think, why did I get rid of that, or why didn't I just put it in a drawer and forget about it? I know, it's real. I even had Michael's coat, because we filmed in. We're not like the winters you can have in America and Canada, and I think I'm not like that, but it was very, very cold in 88, 89 in London, in South England. And I remember Michael was given this really big coat so he could wear that over his bat suit, you know, because while you were waiting around to film. And I had that coat, and I don't know where that coat's gone. But going back to Tim, he was just wonderful. He really, really was a wonderful guy. That he even said to me at the wrap party that had I ever worked in America, and I think he was keen to get me back on terms, but there was, you know, an interruption of our conversation, let's say, and that I say that moment was lost. I don't know. I think it was more than the fact that politically with Returns there was the time, you know, between the sequel and the original and other things going on. But I think he really did. It was very praiseworthy about what I've done with the movie. So I think that says a lot about him, because there are directors and people that may just make minimal contact, conversation. But with Tim, he was a genuinely lovely guy who had said to me, "I want to thank you for an amazing contribution on the movie." And
that's great.
He always,
that's awesome.
he was always, he'd ask me something, or he'd listen, or he'd let me do things. So it's very supportive. And again, you can't ask for any more than that, can you? When you've got someone of his, creativity, his brilliance,
and a leader, it sounds like.
And a leader,
Sounds like he was a great leader on there. And like you said, he was like so young and had Warner Brothers producers breathing down his neck on a big project like that with a big team.
Yeah, I mean, I really felt for him, having experienced some of that myself. How frightening that is. It's really tough, isn't it, when you've got those pressures, because it can stifle your creativity or put you under just so much pressure.
For sure.
But he coped admirably, but he was just the loveliest guy. And I think another thing that was lovely for me was that I went to one or two sort of parties, social things within all of this, and that allowed me to get a lovely feel as well. Because I remember seeing there was a really great party, and I remember saying to Jack's dresser, I'd really like to just say hello. I'm not trying to be ahead of myself, but I've just so loved him as an actor, and my family as well. And I would just love to say hi, and my name's Carl, and whatever. But we did it very gradually. But it was lovely to have these opportunities. Like, I went to a party and Michael was there, and so I got to know more about him as well. And Kim was very lovely to me as well. I spoke with a lot of the actors, the goons, the guys on the rooftop, Chris Fairbank, they're just lovely people. So I had more time with them, because we're doing shots together. Or I may have done a shot and then Sean came in and did a shot, but we were around. And it was a great family. There was a lot of that synergy, a lot of that cohesion going on between us all. Lovely.
That's great.
And that's probably why the film resonates so well. Like when you got all those positive things just gelling, and I'm sure Tim appreciated all you guys like being there, having his back, doing everything like to an A game level. He was like, with whatever was going down his neck as far as pressure goes, he's like, I got everybody here working for me, and I'm sure he appreciated that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people will find this interesting. You can have these sort of prima donnas, these kind of divas, that, well, I want this.
Yeah.
I want this, and this. Well, I remember that they said to me, I could have had a driver to take me in every morning or whatever, and I never bothered. I just literally I went in with Todd, who we were great friends. He was one of the backsuit wranglers, and he lived very near to me in West London, and I used to ride in with him quite a lot. I think there was one time I had a driver when I did a sequence for the blowing up of the Axis Chemical, and he was a lovely guy, and I was thinking, there's this lovely Mercedes or BMW or whatever with the guy, just going in. But I just enjoyed being normal and just, getting on with the job. I mean, I was a guy that really loved Kim, at growing up as well, and loving her movies and thinking how gorgeous she was, and but to be working with her, and she was so lovely to me, and those things really make it for me. When she writes on your photo, you make a beautiful Batman. You just think, wow, can I believe it? But no, there's moments like that. I'm meeting Prince as well, but not getting a word out of him.
I feel like so excited, and then
So
like,
you
oh, he
have
didn't say
friends
anything.
too?
Yeah, well, I showed up because I did a lot of the Batwing insert shots as well, you know, all the controls. And
Oh, so that's your hand like hitting the buttons and
yeah.
oh,
I mean,
awesome.
Oh,
again,
wow.
you know, I mean, just to sit in as you would love, you know, sit in that Batwing was enough in itself. But when they said, oh, you know, flick these switches and whatever, but I turned up for doing that, and I couldn't believe it. I looked across, and there was Prince just walking around, this diminutive figure, and I just, again, I loved his music. We used to use his music at college for routines, and we got very, very close. And I just wanted to say, you know, how amazing it all was. And he was obviously doing that visit for his research for the music to see the Batwing and the sets and the Batmobile, but he just didn't feel like conversing. So I respected that. Well, I thought, well, that's okay. At least I've been in the presence of this genius. But then he I didn't realize this at the time. One of the lovely fans out there sent me a picture of the insert of the CD booklet.
Oh,
With you in the bell tower and the cape.
Yeah, there was
swishing.
my shot with the swishing of the capes. I thought, well, he's paid me the highest compliment in that sense. I may not have had a word out of him, but I've at least got a picture in his booklet.
that's awesome. That's so cool.
What can you tell us about the Batcave? I mean, that to me is probably my favorite Batcave of all time in the movies. And I can only just imagine as soon as you walk on set and you're just like, wow, this is like, I know you grew up with the show and you said you were a fan of the old Adam West TV show, and that was a great Batcave as well. But to me,
Oh, yeah.
the 89 Batcave was just like, this is what it would be like.
This was the ultimate. And I was so, you know, proud and excited to be given that sequence where the Batmobile rocks up at the Batcave, and I get out with Vicky, and then I'm sort of leading her around this labyrinth. You know, it was mind blowing. I mean, it was just you were literally in awe. I think I was the type of person. Can you imagine going into the most amazing curiosity shop or something? And I was like, I just didn't know where to look first. It was one of those one of those moments, really. The way they'd created it. I got on so well with the crew as well. We used to have a lot of banter, as they call it here, and a lot of laughs, and yeah, just again, mind-blowing design, mind-blowing lighting, and to have that sequence as well was wonderful to do. And I also did some work around there with the Making of a Hero documentary, and I saw a shot of me with a fan or a visitor, which was really, really lovely. And I think that was around that time as well, where the Batcave sequence was being done. But yeah, all those monitors, you know, with Michael as Bruce, just amazing, just totally amazing.
Did they use real bats in that cave? Out of curiosity.
Well, did I see that? You know what? It looks. I do seem to think that there was. I'm trying to remember because it, you know, with it being all sort of out of sequence and things. I think when I did my bits, there wasn't. I didn't see that, even though it's portrayed in that sequence, you know, further on. But certainly when I was doing things, I didn't see any bats.
Okay.
No. But I think I'd love to have met Jack Palance as well, just going on a little bit more about the actors in the movie, because he was someone in my late parents' generation, who was kind of really revered, you know, and he was an incredible actor, as we know. But I'd love to have met him, because I loved all those kind of guys like Charles Bronson, you know, real strong, you know, great characters as well within the industry. It's just a shame that we never had that opportunity.
We actually have a friend who was friends with Jack Palance.
Oh,
Our friend
really?
Troy, yeah, our friend Troy, who joined us on our Batman '89 episode.
Oh,
Yep.
really?
His Jack Palance is actually a resident of PA up in the
Oh,
was it Schuylkill County area,
I think so.
I think.
I
oh,
believe
wow.
so.
Yeah.
And his Troy's grandparents, I think, fixed player pianos, and he would go into Troy's grandparents' house,
It's amazing.
right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, as we know with the movies, it's just an amazing world, isn't it? And you remember all these different people from your childhood and growing up, and they make a big impact, don't they, on you?
Hmm.
Say that they were great people that I admired. I
Well,
mean, I was
obviously,
very
you made an
lucky.
impact on us.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much. Oh, I really appreciate that.
Oh, hey, I mean, what you did was basically create a language for Batman. Like in all those moves, like I said, when I was a kid, I was playing it in the yard at like 4 and 5, telling people, no, if you want to be Batman, you got to move your cape like this and then bring it down. You got to sneak up to somebody very slowly, or like you said, opening the trap door. You got to have that confidence, and then you got to be
Yes.
walking with like the elegance, and just be you got to be mean. You got to be tough. I totally saw it. And I also noticed it was lacking in Batman Returns. There was no
Yeah.
like cape swishing. There was no, I think there was like 2 scenes where one was like an obvious glider where he opens up the cape.
There
And the
is the
other one
glider
was,
scene. Yeah.
and then there was a shadow silhouette version of it. But I was like, the language just isn't there,
Yeah,
and
I don't understand it, Colin, really, because as we know, I mean, we look at things like RoboCop, that was a professional dancer, wasn't it? And Aliens, Carl Toop, one of the guys, he was around my time, dancing and stuff, and I don't understand why they can't embrace that and carry on. Because at the end of the day, you're a performer. That's what you love doing, whether you're an actor or a singer or a dancer, musician, whatever. That's your chosen field. You shouldn't be abandoned and not be utilized in the way that you can. And I just find that so sad now. And I was very flattered when people have told me about Returns. And, when I've seen it, I did feel there was something lacking. The action didn't seem to happen with Batman. It was all initially fighting, wasn't it, to begin with? And like you say, it was later on where the contraption opened there, and then there was a bit more sort of flying in. But I don't understand it, because surely you can have a blend of the two. And it's this
Certainly.
thing in movies where they can waste so much money on the one hand, and then they can scrimp and save on a tiny thing about hiring a performer, a dancer or whatever, that will give them that extra layer performance. It's very sad.
oh, it's incredibly
Yeah.
sad. I think they focused too much on the villains and Returns, and like Batman
Yes.
really wasn't in it. When in this, you had a good balance. You had the Batman, Bruce Wayne, Vicky Vale story, and then you had the Joker story. And in a lot of ways, this was kind of like a prototype, because nobody, like, we had Superman the movie, and that was obviously a success. And they had some like little comic book films come out here and there that weren't taken very seriously. And then, and I think Batman was like a 10-year project to try to get it up and going. And they said, if we're going to do it, we got to do it right.
Yeah.
And I think they could tell that you guys were basically putting together like a Darth Vader then, when they said, okay, we got the guy in the costume, but now we also got to get the voice right. And, so they had Sean and Dave for stunts, Michael for the acting and the voice, and then they had you for the body movement and body language, basically.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and it complements.
And that's a movie.
That's a movie, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. It to my mind, it doesn't matter that four guys were in the suit. That was just how that was, and it all meshed together beautifully. It all worked, and why not continue in some shape or form with that. I don't get that really. It's so sad.
I know some people thought of Batman '89 as a risk because of going the darker tone, because everyone was so used to the '60s Batman. And the only thing I can think of that's kind of close to Batman '89 was a year later we got Sam Raimi's Darkman, which also was a movie that had a lot of dark undertones, comedic moments, romance, action sequences. And that was a year later. And a lot of people think like Sam Raimi and Tim Burton kind of have like a similar style to a degree.
Yes.
But so maybe that was Batman '89 could have been like a trailblazer. It's like, okay, Sam Raimi has the freedom to make this movie he wants to make because Batman '89 was so successful. Let's do Darkman and let's see how that resonates with audience members.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's tragic in many ways as well, because I know there's this sort of controversy over, doing the returns in LA and not continuing it at Pinewood. I mean, for my mind, it just seems so sad that whole Pinewood set was languishing and doing nothing, and then consequently it got ruined and run down. And I know it doesn't work like that in life. That was inherited, but for me, I'm sure they could have worked around it somehow. You would have still been given some differences. I mean, they're so talented, these teams. When you think of the movies that were made at Pinewood, the Bond legacy there, and Star Wars, etc., and Indiana. And sure, they could have modified things in some ways, but we never understand, can we?
No. Hollywood.
I think it's the same everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got such a small film industry in the UK ordinarily. I mean, we have these beautiful locations that we can provide for the period things, but it's such a shame. I was sad that Pinewood got ruined like that. I would have thought they could have opened it and let people come in and see it.
No, like a ticket attraction or something.
Ticket attraction. Yeah, done something. Yeah.
Walk on Batman set. I would totally do that.
Exactly. I'd go back as well. I'd love it. What a shame. What a real shame.
Put you back in the costume, say meet Batman on set. Oh my God, that would be perfect.
Yeah, I'd love it.
See, in like 2 minutes, we just came up with like a new marketing gig that they could have done, and we were what, 2 at the time.
Exactly.
What can you tell us about the Axis Chemical scene, because you did a lot of movements in there, and I think I remember specifically one scene was when Jack Nicholson's not the Joker yet, but he's running up the stairs before he falls into the vat of chemicals. I think they said that you were balancing on one of like the poles behind him and you switched the cape back.
I'd love to say I was. I think, I'm very flattered that people see these things and then they automatically think it's me, which is lovely. I think what was very, very difficult, I think for Michael's sake as well, that they were trying to share this work out, because you know what it's like politically, you're not wanting to step on the stunt territory side too much or whatever, because they have their legislation. So for instance, Sean would be the driver for the Batmobile, and I was sad that I didn't get a chance to drive it. I was in it and out of it, but not actually driving it. But I think with some of these sequences, there was no reason why I shouldn't have done them, but I think there was this shared thing of, well, we better let Sean do that, but we'll get Carl in to do the rooftop run, which was kind of like my forte as well. And that took a lot of guts as well to do that, because of the danger element. I remember that initially just going to do that shot in itself was very frightening, because I had to go up in full costume, almost like an exposed staircase, climbing up to this rooftop. It was mad. And then I got there and I just looked down, and the guys were really quite a distance down. But there was the neon sign, there was the dry ice, there was all these cables and things everywhere. It seemed very tight. And Peter McDonough was saying, look, you know, because he used to call me Batty. I think I must have been Batty to have done it. That was his very kind nickname for me, I think. But I would just, you know, scan everywhere and look at what was available and just measure this kind of distance. And the idea was that I did actually run in quite some distance. But when you see in the movie and on these sort of posts and things, it looks like I've just run in a short distance. But I ran quite a long way and then sort of stopped and then looked and then did my cape swish and turned away. But it was very, very dangerous and no safety measures whatsoever, which is unheard of. But I paced it out, I measured it, made sure that I would do so many runs, if you like, and then stop. But that was very frightening. But there was another scene that I did with regard to the axis, which was when it's Michael does this famous bat turn when there's the explosion. But I got taken out by this driver, which I alluded to earlier, where I got taken to this location. And they had me getting out the Batmobile and looking up where the helicopter was. And I don't know what happened there. So whether they've kind of, as they did when I emerged from the Batwing, they've kind of used the combination of Michael very much for the close-ups, but then me as well doing those movements and things. So I think that, you know, that was an extra bit for me as well. I was very happy about.
And you directed the Joker mimes too, right?
Yes.
At City Hall.
I love that. I really love that because
wow,
as we do in life with our experiences and our observations, that we kind of like magpies, you know, we take in all this lovely experience and stuff, and then it's stored there and we can draw from it when we need to. And I think because I was taught for one term at college by a guy that had studied in Paris, like a Marcel Marceau type school. He taught us some very good mime, and then I'd seen things as well. And then when they said to me about taking the goons into a studio, I just thought, wow, that's perfect. So we did everything very over the top, which was what they wanted, and it was lovely working with the guys again because I'd had conversations with them, but then I said, well, why don't you do this? And then one might say, well, look, I've got this idea, and we worked together, and it was fabulous. So that was another little string to my bow, if you like, to have that opportunity to do that.
Absolutely.
that's really
I got
cool.
hired as well. This would be interesting for the fans. I got hired on another movie, and I did some work with Barbara Hershey. Where,
wow.
Yeah, she was quite a character as well. She was in her trailer, and then she got called onto the set, and I had to show her some sort of 60s type dance movements and things, and she was excellent. She really was naturally very good. So I'd sort of said to her, look, you know, got it there, and we just built on one or two things. But that was a great experience as well, working with her.
Wow. That is so awesome. What can you tell us about the cathedral scene? I know we talked about the trap door and how you stalk the Joker at certain parts, but you also open the door, right? You actually come out of the Batwing, you emerge, and then the close-ups, Michael, and then you open that door to that cool shot. Oh,
yes.
Man, I love this movie.
Well, that was wild because apparently, wasn't it a 3/4 built Batwing to replicate the original? I think that's what I heard anyway. That I think what I just loved was when the guys, as you do when you see them getting set up for these shots, and they were creating all the fire and the various explosions, if you like, as the Batwing had crashed. But yeah, so I start right from having the same sort of facial scars and things as Michael, and pushing the debris away and emerging, and then, you say, staggering to the cathedral doors and pushing them open and going in. And then the scene is quite busy for me. It sort of stopped there, and I think it's more Michael as he's ascending the staircase, and then that emerging from the trapdoor, pushing that open. But what I really loved was the opportunity to be in that costume with that cape and have more time to be theatrical with it and have that really elegant, sort of purposeful walk and stuff. So as I was moving about, and then there's the scene with Lawrence, as you know, where he tries to capture me, and some people have said, well, why didn't you turn earlier? But you don't turn it straight away, do you? Because you have to hear someone. It's all about that time, isn't it? That moment where someone's leaping through the air. But I love being able to do that turn and then the real look back down at the sort of the hole that he's created in those boards, and then I carry on again, and I'm walking in purposeful, full, and with intent, sort of looking around me, and then finally with Jack, and you know, I've looked at some of the movie stills and thinking, was that me or was that Michael? And there was so many kind of close calls with that, because there would be times where we were filming and then we would break because it was very hot. We'd be taking drink, and I'd be talking with Jack, you know, or Tim. I just wish someone had taken more photographs, because there was those moments where I was having more of that interaction, you know, that downtime, if you like, from filming, where, you know, and Jack was lovely, because he was the one that coined the Balletbat phrase.
That's so cool.
That ballet. So you see, that all came in from our sort of involvement together, if you like. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff, as I say, because fans have said, you know, was that you, was that Michael, and it could have just been literally split seconds or minutes that you know, Michael had got that picture, and yet I was in that same space, if you like, talking to them, and, you know, having done the shots, you know, sequences. So, but yeah, that was a really busy scene for me in the bell tower, and I loved it. I used to love it when I went when we had breaks, and we had the catering breaks, for instance, and I would go into the Pinewood canteen, and they'd see me with all my gashes and my mess, thinking, what's he up to, you know?
And to top things off, you had probably the best scene of all. You got to be with the bat signal at the end. That was you, not Michael.
That was me, yes. So
wow.
To bookend,
that's awesome.
It's mad, isn't it? I mean, to bookend the movie, and that was, funny enough, one of the first shots I did. You know, soon after the landing and the takeoff. I think that was very much, you know, one soon after, and yeah, I wish, you know, we always called it blue screen then, but I imagine green screen. It's all changed a bit now, but I can't remember there being an actual screen per se there. But I just remember that I was in full Batman regalia. I was on a very sort of high-ish platform, you know, very, very robust platform, and Tim had me standing there, and they'd got this great industrial fan, you know, this propeller there, and that created that lovely kind of feeling with the cape as well. But again, it's that lift and that sort of pose, isn't it, that you have as a dancer or an athlete, and you make it like a hero pose, don't you? Make it very interesting. That was just mind blowing. I mean, a lot of people have tried to put that down and say, well, the ears are the mini ears, and was it a puppet, or was it this, or was it that? But I can assure you that that was what I did anyway. I was directed by Tim to do that particular shot, that sequence.
So cool.
That's incredible. It's a beautiful shot too.
And you got Danny Elfman's music pounding in the background. The bells are chiming.
Dude, could it get any better?
It's just like we were saying earlier, that the sort of the whole realm of ingredients coming together on this, you couldn't have wished for more. Danny and Prince, all of them were just total geniuses in my mind.
Oh, it was the perfect combo. And like I said, I think it was even when we were off camera talking, that I think Tim Burton got it right, where he knew that there was a generation of 60s Batman fans, and that were now adults. And he added like the colors of the Joker to pop with like just a little bit of that TV show camp. Well, I mean, they recreated the like one of the scenes from an episode in the art museum, because there's a show, there's an episode of the show where the Joker ruins art, and they did that in the movie. And like I said, it was like those generation of fans are now adults, and they're taking their kids. Like my mom and dad took me to a drive-in, to see Batman89 at 2. Or more or less, they just dragged me along because they wanted to see it. But I can still say that I got that experience, even though I don't remember it.
No, I mean, it just, I think, for me, what added even more to that movie was, as I said earlier, was all the other extras. When the press department said to me, "Oh, we'd love you to do a lot of the publicity shots," and having those opportunities to be in the costume and on the steps at Gotham Cathedral or whatever, just mind blowing, because you've done the sequences in the movie, and then you're doing these photo sessions with these great guys, and then it's beautiful how life maps out, because I've loved a lot of the Hollywood photographers and the British ones, and all over the world, but I particularly loved Herb Ritts, and it's fascinating that I went to his exhibition at one of the galleries in London, and I so loved his work. And then the next thing, I'm stood in front of him, having some pictures taken by this amazing guy, this absolute legend, this genius. And he was also very complimentary about me. I mean, he was comparing me to like a young Mandy Patinkin from The Princess Bride, movie, and which I didn't mind at all. But
that's a high compliment.
Just the way he worked, and his assistants, and you think in hindsight, wouldn't it have been lovely to have him sign one of the photographs? But it doesn't work that way, does it? Because he's got his schedule. He's there taking the photos. They've got to be developed. And I said to him, look, I'll be able to get a couple of shots, on this session. So of course, but moments like that, and not being funny, but I met this beautiful lady on the movie. I don't know whether you heard this in a previous interview, and she was a fantastic designer, and meeting her, and then Jack Nicholson was very fond of her as well, which was very interesting. But that episode, that time I had with her was incredibly special. To not only had the movie, but to have this lovely romance with this lady that was incredible, and the other bits and bobs as well, just incredible, really, just incredible. And I mean,
so Batman gets the girl, huh?
Well, Batman got the girl, and the joking, didn't you see? So he won through. But yeah, it was amazing. It's just, I think it's how I think life should be. You know, there was the romance there for me as well. As in the movie, you know, it's fabulous.
What an experience. I mean, to like
Honestly.
work with guys like Michael, Tim, Jack, Kim, and all the cast and crew, and have the musicians behind the film. I mean, you've like not everybody, like an actor, performer, a crew member, gets to be a part of something that has a legacy like this and have it live on for so many years. I mean, this is something like an Oscar can't even compare to, because this is something that's just like stamped with you forever.
Yeah, I mean, it's priceless, Colin. I think what really does it for me is that I you're not going to believe this, but after the movie, you know, and I got out there again, and I was beyond boosted from this experience. But I was going to meet casting directors, and they were not believing me, because at that time this was like the movie, wasn't it? You know, it had surpassed, I think, Star Wars or Indiana, or the actual takings from it were phenomenal. But this is no word of a lie. I was going to meet other directors, and I met Danny Cannon because I went up for a part on Judge Dredd, and a lot of the time they were not believing me. I wasn't portraying it or pushing it down their throats to say, "No, look, you know." I just said, "Look, I've been very fortunate. I've been working on the Batman. I was doing some movement double for Michael, and but they honestly they looked at me, gone out, because it was that timing. I think with the hype and everything else, they just didn't seem to believe what I was saying. So there was a lot of, if you like, say bad luck, but not the right timing sometimes, or the opportunities didn't arise. And I went up for initially a cameo for Eyes Wide Shut, the Kubrick film with Cruise and Kidman, and then they were looking at me in a dance element as well, and they couldn't make their minds up. I think I had several visits, re-auditions, castings, and still couldn't make their mind up, and then I didn't get it. So there's all that. But you see, this just makes up for everything. And I always believe in life, it's quality over quantity. And
absolutely,
you can say you've done 10 things, but my life has taken me in other directions, and I've loved that as well. So, you know, of course, people have said, "Are you in the Flash?" And are you in this, or are you in that? Of course, I'd love to say yes, but who knows? Who knows what might happen? It's what I've loved, and this is why I love this so much, is that the fans and the people have enriched my life beyond no end. I'm not just saying that, but the things I've experienced in this last chapter, if you like, or this chapter, is mind-blowing. The kindness and just the joy and the enthusiasm, and I'm just beyond words. It's mind-blowing to me. It's touched me so closely, what people have said, and you know, because there's a lot of knocking in the industry and a lot of putting down, and
we talked about the nitpicking on the movie, like with the little special effects, but Jaws or Raiders of the Lost Ark is a masterpiece. There's nothing wrong with them. But Batman 89, that's still right up there. I mean, that's why we got fans. Yes, we keep it alive.
And why should we change from that? It's like saying that, you know, if you like Dracula, for me, you'll always look at Christopher Lee as being one of the most amazing Draculas. Yes. You know, the Hammer House, you know, it's and we think of how the horror movies have progressed, and you still can't say that, you know, some of the earlier stuff is bad. I mean, I think Hitchcock was one of the most frightening movies, the suspense. I mean, Psycho, when I first saw Psycho, it just really frightened me, you know, because of that. It's all the cerebral, isn't it? All the thought of how he was Norman Bates with his mum, and all of that going on. And that's how Hitchcock was so clever, wasn't he? So
Yeah.
I don't think you can ever put those movies aside and say, well, you know, this is better, or you know what I mean. I think we have to look at those as being standalones, don't we? I think 89
Yes.
should be a standalone that has been the gold standard of movies. Yeah, there won't be anything like it again. That's the reality.
Oh no, we saw that with the sequel. It didn't even compare. I mean, like Anton First's art to the set wasn't there. I mean, yeah, we had some elements like Michael and, you know, like Pat Hingle, Michael Goff came back as Commissioner Gordon and Alfred. The Batmobile was pretty much the same, but Danny Elfman's music. But it was kind of like some ingredients mixed with something new.
Yes,
is what it felt like.
Case of sequelitis, you know.
And not that it was horrible, but it just like it. I think it lacked an entertainment value. I mean, structurally, it's very good, and artistically, it's very beautiful. But it doesn't have that triumphant ending like Batman '89 has, or that good versus evil save the girl sort of feel. Like it's a classic tale just told in a comic book version that created this fantasy world, which is what a movie should do. You got costumes, music, sets, terrific performances, sound effects. I mean, this movie has everything. So to like nitpick and just be like, well, you know, that animation scene at the beginning is like, or the Batmobile when the shields go on, it looks so dated. It's like, listen,
come on.
You work with what you had back then. I mean, it was special at the time. So
yes, you see, and it just shows you with the budget that they had on Returns was obviously far more in the pot than they had. But again, you see, there's been confusion over. There was only really one costume based on Michael's sculpt. You know, like in Returns, there was one made for Dave Lee as well as Michael, but we never had that luxury. We just had the one suit that was taken off Michael, which was fair. I think we did admirably with what the budget was, and what was achieved by it. Just shows you that sometimes you can have more money, but you can be wasting it, can't you?
Exactly.
Utilizing it the right way. So that's interesting in its own way.
So I think to finish this up, what do you think after 30 years of Michael Keaton coming back as Batman in The Flash?
Yes.
Well, I think it's just amazing. I really do. I think he's aged very well. He's looking great. Certainly in the trailer that I saw, I was really impressed. I think, as we spoke previously before going on air, that we missed the fact that the performers are not there and it's very CGI heavy. But that's the way things are now. So for me, seeing the flying, which would have been done CGI and some of the other stuff, yes, you're bound to say that you're a performer. You know what that's like. But I'm eagerly awaiting to see it. I think it's fantastic, and who knows if there is now a chance that Tim may do the third final with him, and maybe I need to try and see if there's a way of getting back in.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Because I'm still all right. I'm still in good shape and raring to go. But I think, he's fantastic. He's, as we know, when he said those famous words, "Yeah, I'm Batman." He's got it. He's got the voice. He's got it all there. He looks great. And but I think what's also helped is the fact that it's even more reinvigorated 89, that the fact that there's more 89 merch out there and stuff, it's kind of pushed my name probably even more out there. And you just don't know. I mean, people are kind of wanting to see something of me, but whether that'll happen, I don't know. Probably highly unlikely. But what one guy has actually done my face sculpt, which does fit on the DX09 or whatever. it's the hot toys. Who knows? It's a lot of fun anyway. It's a lot of fun seeing those things. Seeing how people have been so kind with the artwork and design, from some of the stuff I did. So yeah, I'm just loving the fact of how more fans are discovering and hearing these stories, and thanks to you for putting these lovely shows together. It reaches out more, doesn't it? And
Hey, to us, this is more of an honor that you did this for us.
Really?
I mean,
really?
to have somebody that has lived an incredible life as you have, and like you said, quality over quantity. I mean, Batman89 certainly has the quality that has lived on. I mean, like I said, it's probably my favorite movie of all time. It's been an inspiration to me. And as a kid, I was like so enamored by knowing how you moved, and like to have the chance to talk to you and tell you about how important your moves were. And that to me as a kid, that I made sure I emulated it to a perfectionist T. That
I'm
just
very
speaks,
touched by that.
well, I just wanted to tell you that it truly speaks volumes. And I couldn't have asked for like a greater person to bring on this show for us. And also,
thank you, everyone.
Oh yeah, thank you. I mean, the response, like, I mean, I didn't know what I was going to expect when I first reached out to you, and I just like laid my heart out as a fan. And then when you gave me that lovely response, I was the little kid in me was just like, oh my God.
I could not for you guys. I could not. I mean, it really is. It's beautiful to be doing this. I'm really thankful to you as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're happy to do this, because I was telling all these guys about like how much of the movie was you, and how important that your language that you created was.
I think the sad thing for me, Colin, was that a lot of it had got kind of glossed over, if you like. I'm not someone who's trying to keep blowing the trumpet, but all I'm saying is, look, if there was another guy, that guy or that lady should have some kind of appreciation or some honesty. That's all I was saying. And I think what set it off for me was that I was in the lockdown, in the COVID, that I was, another part of my life was looking after people with food, and I used to work for this farming family, and food's a big thing in my life. And in my downtime from helping people get food deliveries and stuff, was I saw on the internet that my photos were popping up, and there'd be sometimes the wrong information, or there'd be the wrong name would be on there. So I kind of contributed, and then it built from there. And I've been able to sort of put the record straight in a way about things that I'd done. And I think that's what it's all about, that we know Dave was so good at the fighting, and Sean was great at the stunts that he did. But my forte was those movements, that those kind of fluidity, athletic sequences, and that's all it was to say was, I'm there as well, which has been done now. So we're very grateful. It has been done anyway for some time, but it's nice that keeps building and more people find out about that.
But you have a lot of iconic movements too, and that's what really stood out. And like as you're talking, I'm like looking at the scenes that you're talking about. I'm like, those are some of my favorite scenes too.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
Because like that whole like presence you had when you dropped down from the rooftop, it was like just that moment. I'm like, oh wow. And then you're talking about it, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay.
Oh, thank you. No, I mean, I was really thrilled when Johnny Kay, lovely director that did Batman: The Oath, the fan film, and he'd said that was my favorite sequence in the movie, and I was like, wow, so like you've said, Jeff, I mean, I'm so touched by that, and it meant such a lot, because that scene did take many takes, in the sense of getting the perfection with the lowering and the timing and the angle and all those things. you know, so again, you put your body on the line. It's quite grueling being on a sort of a harness for a length of time, but you don't think anything about that because you want that to be so perfect. It's a pivotal scene in the movie, and you're perfectionist, and I would have done it another 30 times if it required. But thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you doing this. This has been fun.
Absolutely.
Like we were talking about showing it our kids. Like I showed my daughter when we went to the theater, and she was actually watching it. A good, yeah.
Oh,
and the irony about talking about the movie theater and getting everybody for Batman89 for my birthday is my birthday was 2 days ago too. So here we are.
Yeah,
like the best birthday present I could ask for.
And the wonderful thing is as well that we are just reinforcing for anybody out there, young or old, whatever, is just, you know, go for it. You know, do your performance, do what you love doing, be inspired. I'm always wanting to encourage the young to fulfill their dreams. And, you know, there I was from a very small, sleepy village in Leicestershire. Whoever thought, you know, I would be there doing this, and my favorite. I mean, when I say about Adam, I think for me, with the old series, it was just that whole escapism, isn't it? Which it kind of is, and the gadgets and things. But yeah, I realised that with 89, it's a whole different level. But I think you have to have a sort of a starting point or an influence as well, and so that's why Adam was so good. But yeah, I'm just saying to everybody, especially the young, just don't give up. Just do your dancing, do your singing, do your acting. Just go for it. You know, live your dreams, and you can only just, you know, say, well, I've tried if something does fail, but I think you should just go for it all out. And that's what I did. I mean, I trained a bit later, but it didn't matter because guys can do these things later anyway in life, you know, especially with dance. I mean, it was something that, you know, wasn't seemed a career at that time, maybe, I don't know. But for me, I just thought, you know, what's the best thing I did? I'm so glad I did it. And the people I've met and all the other stuff, like the television work I've done and pop videos and the people I've worked with, it's just been fantastic, really. Yeah.
I just have one last question for you, Carl.
Yes, sure.
Do you have anybody, or is there anybody in your family who has pursued the performing arts?
No, I mean, my eldest brother's very, very clever with the sciences, so he's helping that side of things. But I think both my daughters are very creative. One's very good with art, and the eldest one is good with hair. And I think I did find out that on my mother's side there was a very famous architect and designer. So I think there is some of that running through the history of the family. But yeah, it's definitely there.
It's
nice. Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to see where my daughters will go. And then my nephew, he's very talented in music production as well. So he goes around and sets up a lot of these big events and things, these performances. So yeah, there's definitely a thread of artistic. My niece as well, she was very good in textiles design. So it's definitely a thread of the artistic, but not so much on the showbiz, although I think certainly one of the daughters could have done that. Yeah, she could have done more. But who knows? You see, things can change, and
honestly,
it's. I think if you're passionate, that's the main thing. If you're passionate and you love people, then anything can happen. It really can.
Amen.
As I say, it's better to have had that quality over the quantity. I was never someone who wanted to say, well, I've done 30 of this, you know.
And how many of them mean something.
Yes, that's right. Exactly right.
Well, Mr. Newman, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but we can't, again, thank you enough for this. We're so happy to get the word out and let everybody know that you were the moves behind Michael Keaton's Batman that on the playground inspired us all.
Thank you so much, honestly. John and Jeff as well. I really appreciate you organising this so that we could all talk together. And if any of the fans want to get in touch, I'm on Instagram on Balletbat1989 or Balletbat_collective 1989, because I've got some lovely photos and merchandise available if anybody's interested. Now, it's been wonderful to send these pictures around the world, and you know, that's another thing that really touches me as well, and doing that, and I'm very proud of all of that side as well.
We need a picture for the Loomis room.
We do.
Definitely. Wouldn't be right without that.
Yeah, that's right. Wouldn't be a man cave without some piece of the back cave.
Right.
But I look forward to hearing from you when it's all been put together, and I'm just, again, I've loved having this opportunity.
Hey, we loved having you all give us this opportunity.
Indeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anytime.
So many people were like, "How did you do this?" And it's like, just reach out to him.
I'm honestly, I'm not somebody who's you know, difficult or testing or whatever. I've got plenty of time for anyone. So, just finding enough hours in the day,
right,
to communicate with everyone. But it's lovely. I'm getting pinged all the time for you know, information or what do you think. So that's lovely. Really,
well, hopefully we make you in high demand after this.
I'm sure you will. Oh, thanks ever so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. You take care anyway, won't you?
So with that being said, we shall sign off. This is Colin Peters.
Bye. Take care. Cheers. Carl signing off. Bye.
Stay safe. Stay crazy.
Take care, Jeff. See you, John. Bye, Colin.
See you, Carl.
Thank you again so much.
You're very welcome, honestly.